Thank you for watching Common Sense Talks. I want to explain to you the science behind why a ban on gas stoves is a very bad idea, and we'll get into it right away. So please smash the like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, leave a comment, and let me know what you think. So one of the biggest factors about why we should not ban gas stoves is because of electricity. Please give me just a quick moment to explain. Most people's electrical panels do not have many open places. As a matter of fact, nowadays, most people's electrical panels are crammed. There's not barely any spaces. And if there are, follow me along and I'm going to explain what's going on. So if your home has a gas stove right now, there is currently going to most likely be no 240 electrical circuit for that stove. And most electrical stoves are going to take between a 50 and a 60 amp breaker with 6 to 8 gauge wiring ran to it with a receptacle to be able to plug that electric stove into. So now you have to make sure your electrical panel has enough room for a new breaker, and then if it does, you have to buy a new breaker, run new wire, a conduit, figure out how to get wire from wherever your breaker's at to wherever your stove is going to be, right? So now you've got to do all this work just to convert over. Now imagine this. Still, there's housing developments where thousands or hundreds of homes were built that same exact way. And if each home has to upgrade 50 to 60 amps, here's what happens. It's like a tree branch, right? You have to, each home, you're going to have a lot of homes. The majority of homes are going to have electrical panel upgrades, which can cost anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 or even more. Then after you have that panel upgrade, you will also have to have that same electrician install a new breaker and a new circuit all the way from wherever your electrical panel is, or wherever your the closest sub panel is to the location where the stove's going to be, the electrical stove. Now, right? Now think about that. And if there's 100 homes on this street, 100 homes on this street, and they're each putting a 50 amp service in and using that, now you're talking like 500,000 to 5 million or more. I didn't just do the math real quick. Amps that this small subdivision is now using. So just a couple of blocks, and they're going to be using potentially millions, if not hundreds of thousands of amps more than they were before. So now the main power feeding lines that go across and drop down from the poles, or either they come underground, that's got to be enlarged. Now the transformers have to be enlarged. Now the main feeding lines from the power stations have to be enlarged. Now a lot of the power stations have to be enlarged. The insane amount of structure that is set up and how our electrical grid is set up is extremely overloaded and frail as it is. But doing this would be the tipping point. It would be like a nuclear bomb, because what would happen is if people don't understand this and don't realize this and stop this, and the movement actually goes forward, you will see, once enough homes are on the grid, homes catching on fire, things melting, transformers blowing, the grid cannot handle it. There's just too much. There'd just be too much power consumption. Not to mention, even if you made it to be able to do that, now every time you cook, instead of using natural gas, which is relatively cheap, you're going to be using electricity, which is becoming more and more expensive. So with that being said, I hope I did a good job conveying to you why a federal ban on gas stoves would be a horrible idea just from the electrical standpoint alone. Now, a bonus caveat I would like to add before we go is propane. So there's also the factor is, you're talking about localized cities where maybe the substation is here and everybody's right here and you can do XYZ. Well, once you start going out and got smaller homes or smaller subdivisions, or let's say smaller communities and small towns outside of these bigger ones, and now you've got to increase the structure, the infrastructure out to them, and increase the electrical and all the stuff out there. And And then how do you do that in the mountains, where you have a frail electrical system as it is up there in the mountains due to trees falling on them all the time, not being a lot of substations and power plants up in the mountains. So what they tend to do is have a lot, also because they know they might lose their power, they have a lot of gas burning devices. They have a lot of devices that burn on propane, because they don't have natural gas to a lot of mountain communities, and electrical is also not very reliable. So propane is one of the most important things that can keep mountain communities alive and fed and warm in the winter. And all a propane stove is a gas stove with just special little orifices installed and a little spring in the gas valve. So one of the big things is if you did a ban on gas stoves, you would basically be dooming millions of Americans who live in the mountains to basically either starve or live off of microwave food, because a lot of those homes are not going to have the electrical capability to upgrade 50 or 60 amps just like that, and they rely heavily on propane. And when things get taken out in the wintertime, their propane stove can still turn on, they can still light it with a match, and they can still cook on the stove top, even though all the electronics in the stove may be dead. Timer may not work, oven may not work, but you can turn the knob, gas will come out, and you can light it and you can cook and feed your family. So there's a lot of just common sense reasons why a federal ban on gas stoves doesn't make sense. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Again, smash that like and subscribe. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. Welcome to Common Sense Talks.